of us got together in the last day and broke bread together. We thank you for that. That was much pleasure was gained by that from all of us. We thank you for that. We welcome you to Grandma's memorial service. I prefer a celebration of life. It was my privilege and honor to try and get through this without to help plan for her care for the last 9 months. And I really value that time with her. It was an honor. Before we get to the prayer to open it, just one thing, Judy Hess and I were just talking about pictures. We don't get too many pictures with everybody together like this, and so what we would like to do is Judy's going to graciously volunteer to be a photographer today, and she's going to set up an account on Shutterfly. So we can share that with everybody with their email. So on the guest book, if you want to be included in that, if you would put your email address down there, we'll add you, and then you can take the pictures as you please from there. So we'll add that, and then if you take pictures that you want on there too, we'll be happy to add those as well. So just thank you for that. So let's bow our heads and let's say a little opening prayer here. Lord, we thank you today that we can gather together to celebrate Grandma's life. She lived a long life and was a wonderful woman, and we have all the fruits of her life in front of you right here. We want to honor her today, and we thank you for this opportunity, and we thank everyone that's came here. We ask that you give everybody the peace that they need during this difficult time. And lastly, Lord, I ask that you be with everybody as they travel and go about their daily lives, and keep them safe and wrap your arms around them. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, I have the obituary reading. Esther Elizabeth Dunton, 1917 to 2018. Esther Dunton, 100, of Grants Pass, Oregon, passed away Wednesday, February 28, 2018, at Paramount Park's Assisted Living Facility in Eagle, Idaho. Esther was born September 30, 1917, in Hubbard, Oregon, to parents Emil and Bertha Bender. Esther's life was full of energetic care for others. She was an active member of her church, including 6 years as a missionary in Guam and the Philippines. She was an active member of her husband's evangelistic team, was a Bible worker, and sold Christian books. She was a meticulous homemaker and an accomplished cook. She loved gardening and especially her roses. She knew the names of all of her roses. And when I went there, she expected me to remember them too. She loved her family and took the time to send many, many letters. Grandma and I had a very good correspondence. Esther is preceded in death by her parents, Emil and Bertha Bender, her sister Hilda Nelson, her brother Lowell Bender, and her children's father, Robert Dunton. Survivors include her 2 children, Kenneth Dunton and Carol Bradley, 6 grandchildren, myself, Jerry Hess, Stephen Dunton, Jim Hess, Jenny Ermshar, and Martha Macy. 14 great-grandchildren and 4 great-great-grandchildren. She is also survived by siblings, Aletha Huddleston and Helen Kissy, and many nieces, nephews, and cousins. Esther was honored on September 30, 2017 at a very large and festive 100th birthday party. She enjoyed it immensely and stood to give a speech of thanks and love to all.
That's nice.
besides that, Aunt Helen and Aunt Aletha know a whole lot more about Mom's life, the early life anyway, than I do. And we had a good time discussing that a little while back yesterday. And I learned some things I didn't know before. But Mother was with her family and moved from Hubbard, I guess, to Florence on the coast. And Aunt Letha told me that they moved to Bonita on a wagon with all of their belongings. And that must have taken a little bit of time. It made me remember and reflect on the fact that probably about 1927 or so, when Mother was 10 years old, was a transition time from the wagons and horses to vehicles. And mentioning vehicles, Mom loved to drive. It reminded me when she lived in Merced, she bought a new Avalon, and she refused to take delivery on it until they put a spoiler on the back. But she was also a fast driver, and she begged one of the patrol officers when she was riding with Steve to not give him a ticket. So, no, she was an amazing woman. And as they grew up, the house that Grandpa Emil built didn't have electricity, it didn't have running water or modern plumbing. And I recall the lamps that were used with the kerosene and the wood stove that, as a boy, I remember enjoying visiting Grandma's house and chopping wood out in the woodshed and keeping the stove going. A lot of you know about that. And Grandma was an excellent cook, and Mother learned well, as did Aunt Helen and Aunt Letha. Great pie makers. Mother didn't like to share her skill on that, and I remember my wife Anna used to tease her about it because she turned her back and not let Anna see how she made the crust. I remember as a young boy sneaking up there and grabbing a couple of pieces of that crust that she cut off of the pie when she was ready to put it in the oven. I know my sister Carol shared a lot of those, and we used to fight about who washed the dishes, who dried it, you know. But those were her early years during the Depression time, and I would say that they thanked the Lord for having a farm. They had chickens, they had cattle, they had horses. Grandpa raised grain, and he had orchards there that provided fruit and filberts. And they, I remember an incident my dad used to like to say, you know, he helped out in those early years harvesting the grain, and you know, they used to shock the grain when they cut it with a scythe by hand, and then later pick it up with a wagon. Well, he asked my dad to drive the wagon, but he gave him some advice before he let him go with the wagon. He says, "Don't run the horses from their shocks over, Bob. And don't run the horses from the shocks over, you know, don't run them over, and don't ruin these things." And, but his speech was broken because he came from Baden-Baden, Germany, and near the Black Forest. My wife and I had the privilege of being there several times, and the first time we went by there was on a Cosmos tour, and I had told my wife I didn't lose anything in Europe, I don't even want to go, but she surprised me with the ticket and said we're going, so we did. And when we got there on the bus, as we were riding along, the bus passed a truck and trailer, and on the side of it it said Bender Trucking. Man, I thought I got roots here. At any rate, after those early years, and Grandpa provided the family with food, and oh, by the way, I remember getting chicken lice from picking up the eggs out of the chicken coop for Grandma too, and dousing my head with kerosene to kill them, you know. My sister went through that too. Anyway, those are some of the memories we have. Then I kind of divided it into education years. Dad became a Seventh-day Adventist and decided he wanted to enter the ministry, and so, not having finished high school, being reared in LA, with the gangs that they had then and so forth, were not as bad as they are today, but still they learned to fight and so forth like the rest of them, and didn't finish high school. So it was that we moved to Laurel, where in 1 year he finished 2 years of high school, his junior and senior year, and was accepted to Walla Walla College and studied theology. Of course, we moved there, lived in an apartment up in the attic of one of those almost 3-story houses in College Place. And Mother was, of course, the best housekeeper somebody could imagine, and cooked and kept us kids going. I have fond memories of College Place, going to the 1st through the 3rd grades there, riding my bicycle to school, or taking a list from Mother. She always made a list and gave me money to go to the store to buy the food that she needed, and some articles I was embarrassed to buy, and bring it back home. And I remember hearing my father come out of the radios going on and the cars going by with the Braden tractor and equipment used, because he was chief announcer and program director for KUJ in Walla Walla, and this was during the war, B-29 base in Walla Walla, and servicemen all over the place there, hundreds of them. And in fact, there was a prisoner of war camp off of Rose Street in College Place. There were about 5,000 German prisoners there. So that was kind of the scene there, and I was warned not to tell anybody that I had German blood in me, because they didn't want us to be interned like the Japanese were. And we had blackouts during the war where you couldn't see a light in any of the city areas at night for fear of Japanese attack. And so those were some of the education years. And upon finishing college, Dad accepted a position in Moscow, Idaho, where he had responsibility for 5 churches in the blues country. I enjoyed those years too, finished the 5th and 6th grades there. And at that time, he received a call from the General Conference to go to the island of Guam and to form the first mission there. And that was only 2 years, in 1947, after the signing of the surrender of the Japanese. So there were still many Japanese on the island of Guam, and I remember as a young man living next to the Marine base, and the patrols were still going out looking for Japanese that were hiding out in those areas. In fact, some of my schoolmates and I went swimming down by the beach, which was quite a distance away. We saw a Japanese in the cave. We didn't see him at first because he shot at us and ricocheted off the edge of the cliff where we were going down into the beach there. And my classmates were 4 years ahead of me, so when I was in the 8th grade, they were 18 years old already and had been scouts for the U.S. military when they reinvaded Guam. Anyway, that was the scene there, and then Dad was able to call 2 other ministers, Elder Turner and Elder Oliver, came out to help, and the women would every Sabbath prepare meals for about 12 to 15 servicemen who were really looking for a home-cooked meal. I assure you that was the highlight of their week and ours, especially mine. After the mission service, after 5 years, actually I went to school. I went to 5 different high schools in 4 years. Went to Army Occupation High School in Japan for the first semester of my freshman year, and then to Laurelwood for the second semester. Returned not to Guam, but to the Philippines, because my parents had moved to the Philippines, and Dad was director of the radio work in the Philippines. We lived on a mission compound in Manila, across the street from Manila Sanitarium Hospital. And I remember the jeepneys where they would say, "Dapasay, dapasay." And that was, they made jeeps a little bit longer, and the people would jump up on the back of the Jeep, and that was the mode of transportation instead of buses. In fact, they still run those in Manila, by the way, only they manufacture their own and they're a little fancier. Anyway, upon returning home from the Philippines in 1953, Dad accepted a position as pastor of the College Place Village Church. And Mother was always involved with, since Dad always had held evangelistic meetings, that was his mission, and, along with being pastor, and eventually became the conference evangelist for the Upper Columbia Conference, and then subsequently moved to San Jose, California for the Central California Conference, where he had a rather large evangelistic team with several ministers, Bible workers. Mother assisted every evening as a greeter. She helped with visitation and so forth, and so she was not only a homemaker, but she was also a licensed missionary and working for the Lord. I forgot to mention on Guam, she also was a call porter and sold books all over the island. So in addition to the other duties that she had as a mother and housewife and a good cook. I separated this into the early life, the education years, and the life in the islands and so forth, and finally the retirement years. Mother lived alone many years, and I remember with my moving van, moving her from Fillmore to her new home that she bought in Merced. And she lived there for many years, made many friends, and was the envy of her neighbors because the way she manicured her lawns and loved her roses and all her flowers. As years went on, she began to fall. She got up on the ladder and did things that she didn't want to tell us about and so forth. Finally, she needed some assistance. And so she lived with us for just under 4 years, and she finally decided that, I guess she got tired of going with us to Central America and so forth. No, not really. She loved those people there. Donated a lot of funds to help build new churches there. But she decided she wanted her own home again. So I contacted Crown Homes in Medford, and they built a manufactured home for her, which was a handicapped home building. And she loved living with me for nearly 4 years. And at the end, of course, it got a little difficult because she fell again and again and didn't want any assistance. But Steve and Tracy came to our assistance and arranged a location for her at Paramount Park's facility and within minutes from their house. And Tracy, absolutely nobody like her. Pardon me. She spent like 50 hours a week at Mother's bedside. Thank you, Tracy. Well, that about does it for me. I didn't think I was going to be getting emotional, but here it is. I love Mother very much. All right. And we'll just say good night, Mom. We'll see you in the morning.
Put together pictures that I had and other people generously shared with me. I'd like to thank Dwayne personally. Those old-time pictures, man, I don't know where you get them, but keep them coming. I love them. And so we thank you for that. I learned a lot of stuff talking with Aletha about some of the pictures and who people were. I was having a tough time picking out people. But I made some copies on thumb drives. If anybody would like one, let me know afterwards. I'll be happy to give you a copy. I bought the Costco pack of thumb drives, so happy to share. Anyway, my labor of love for Grandma.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I don't know either. Whatever made the most business sense.
Yeah. Answers it.
My kids are like 3 years old to 7 years old.
Oh, yeah, so maybe the whole world would be shook with the racing.
Exactly.
T-ball coach.
I'm like, well,
Yeah. Is audio on?
Audio is on.
audio is on.
Howdy. Yeah. Hey, Grandma.
They're transitioning so they're going just so their kids don't have to change schools. Anyway, we're trying to get there with practice and we do a lot of
Think about you as old time as well.
I pray for her every day too.
yeah, just an hour.
Grandma.
And you,
Good to meet you.
James. I pray
There we
for
go.
you too, James.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah.
See about better circumstances, but. Hi.
Hello, and
How
your
are you?
name is?
I'm Lee.
My goodness sakes.
It's good to meet you.
He was little. Here's mom.
Oh, and now you're like, should have.
Yeah.
Should have known though, you're tall.
This scruffy guy. Stand out.
Big scrub, that's what we're going to call you.
He passed me up in height, so I had to get bigger than him
That
somewhere.
lady wants to take our picture.
Huh?
She wants to take our picture, and
Oh,
that's,
this lady?
that's Carol's son's
Sure.
wife from East Coast.
Oh.
Now it's getting back. She knows now that the judge gave it to me, you know, and then she was mad and she was near tears after the thing. But then she realized, and then she called me and we had a couple of nice conversations. Oh,
I'm used to this now. It should be in English.
Were you following the wrong group?
No, I was just down there a bit until they got out.
That would stink. I don't recognize any of these people.
In a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Then I also saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall dwell with him. God himself will be with them and be their God. Okay. As we hold Esther in our hearts and memories from this day forward, we commit ourselves to carrying Esther with us always. We honor her memory by the following promises: to treat our friends and family members the way that Esther did, with a caring heart and honest interaction, to move through life with a quick wit, generous laugh, and brilliant smile. And the commitment to holding our hearts open to allow others into our lives with the intention of creating and honoring the family of God. To signify this promise to Esther, Will the immediate family please take up a flower? I believe there is, that has been provided for you already. Take a flower, a rose, to place upon the grave, the casket, with the intention that by laying this flower close to her, her spirit will be surrounded forevermore with all the love, happiness, and wonderment she felt as a woman. If we have roses left over, please, those that wish could also take a flower. Allow the children to do this as well, so that they may also have closure in their minds. If any of you have final words for Esther, please feel free to share them now before we say the committal prayer. If anybody would like to share a small story, this would be the time. Please come.
About 2 weeks ago, I was visiting with Grandma, and she asked me, she said, "Vicki, what do you think God's plan is for me?" And she can't hear, so wasn't easy to carry on a conversation, but she had a whiteboard that we could write on and she could read it. And she would get ahead of the conversation sometimes and grab the board for me so she could see what was coming next. But when she asked me that question, I just wrote down Jeremiah 29:11 on the board. And she knew instantly what the verse was. She knew her Bible verses very well.
Amen. Anyone else?
Well, as we know, the German background, Grandma loved everything potatoes. So I went through my whole repertoire of potato recipes in the last month and a half, and I'm pretty good now at potato salad and scalloped potatoes. So if anybody ever gets into Boise way, we'll have some potato salad and think of Grandma.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You know, Grandma always loved to read, and she was an avid reader, and we shared that love, and we would send books back and forth. And she always liked to see all the kids. And I remember as a little girl, she used to make homemade Play-Doh for me, and we used to do that, and it's just a nice memory to remember her by.
Anyone else? The Bible says that man born of a woman is but a few days. Isaiah compares it to a flower. It's here today and it shrivels up tomorrow. I'd like to use that as for an analogy of life because it's true. Look at the kids here. Beautiful, aren't they? We are all born like a beautiful rose. The years pass by, and before you know it, your eyes begin to fail you. Your ears, you need hearing aids now. Now there goes a cane and walker, and then your heart begins to go, and pretty soon, before you notice it, a lot of things, too many things change. We have aged. We get to the point where there is very little left to what we were once when we were just born young and beautiful until we end up like this. But the beautiful thing about this analogy is that there will come a day when the Lord will break through those clouds as we were speaking earlier, And it says that we shall be transformed. We shall be renewed all over again into something beautiful. Can I hear an amen for that?
Amen.
At this moment, I would like to invite the family to please place your flowers on the casket as we say our goodbyes to Esther.
Owners, at this time, as a symbol of love and respect, would you please remove your boutonnieres, place the pin back into the green stem, one by one place them upon the casket.
And now, because God in His infinite love and wisdom saw fit to call Esther Dunton to rest, we gently commit her body back to the earth from where it came, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, with the full knowledge and assurance that God in the resurrection morning will change the corruptible into incorruptible. May God have mercy on us all. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm assuming you all noticed that we have some cookies and nuts and coffee and all that back there. So please feel comfortable to just dig right in when you get there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Judy has kindly consented to take a picture, so we can gather everybody and try to get one big group picture. We have never done this as long as I can remember, so it would be certainly wonderful if everybody would be willing to participate.